All right, welcome YouTubers. Um, Decided to upgrade my music a little bit, and I've been doing some MP3 tags and getting some equalizing and downloading some songs. But along the way, it's kind of hard to um, just pick songs out of random. Usually, you have to look for like top 100 lists or just albums and after a while, like, hey, there's songs that I've probably forgot about until you see a compilation, and that can be pretty hard to look up sometimes. So what I'm going to attempt to do here is I found a site, and everybody knows what the Billboard is. So Billboard Hot 100, and it happens to go back. I stopped at 1960, so I'm going to go 1960 to current. So it's going to be 2017 now, but I'll do it by decade. This is going to take quite a bit of time. I saw that there were massive, 280 gigabyte downloads online where you could get the entire music library of the world, but I'm just kind of interested in what has been popular songs over the decades. So this is a sort of a data poll. I haven't done a data poll in high quality, I don't think, before, but if you look at the Billboard, it's www.billboard.com/charts/hot-100. Of course, there are other Billboard charts, but I'm going to deal with popular songs here. And then it's got the date, the month, and the year encoded, and that'll get you the Hot 100. And every week or every 7 days, they populated a new list. And I'm sure it goes back before 1960, but I'm not too interested in the early 60s music, but late 60s I think would be a lot of songs that are very popular. If you look at Rolling Stone Top 500 or something like that, it's modern rock. So I know this list is not quite there, but I'll start here nonetheless. And what I'll attempt to do is pull these down individually each week as CSVs. So that'll be 52 files a year, 100 songs. I know these songs will repeat, but that'll be 5,200 entries per year, and I'm doing a decade, so that's 52,000 entries, which is good for my Excel. I've got the old version of Excel here that only has 65,000 rows, but that's okay. I think I'm going to have to do this in chunks anyways. So the formula, I wrote some macros, and the step one is where we're going to be here, where I'm going to pull these CSVs down from the website, and this takes a little bit of time, but I'm going to dump them into a directory on my C drive called Billboard, and it's going to be coded with, I'm going to put a BB and then basically the date and the CSV, and each one of these are running about 461 kilobytes. Of course, there's going to be, 52 a year times 10, that's 520 per decade. So whatever that comes out to, 250 megabytes or whatever else. But once you do 6 decades, you'll have over a gig's worth of data of these CSVs. I'll probably delete them out after I'm done with them. Now, I've done a number of them just to get it running here and make sure my logic, but I've only gone through 1963. May 25th, 1963 was my leave off. So instead of starting back here in 1960 and pulling all those again, I'm going to start right at May 25th, 1963. I'm going to stop once it hits 1970, and then I'll do my second step, right? So let's step through this. It's in high def, so hopefully you can blow up your screen and see the text. But I'm going to pull the CSV here. This is my first step. It gives me the week, and I'm going to parse that week into it's a date, and really a date. I'm going to parse into a string, and I'm going to populate this cell up here with that date, and then I'm going to make a CSV file that corresponds with that. And then I've got this user form. You have to do this with the user form and do it one at a time and shut it down. But basically, the user form initializes, it goes and gets that text and from and to and puts them into boxes and executes this download module that I've got set here. And so I used to have this online or on the YouTube, and I'll probably have to open it up again because I use this a lot for all kinds of CSV pulls. And it unloads the form before it even gets started, and you don't see it. And so that should have downloaded the 525, and then it increments it by 7 days and does the same thing over again. And hopefully, let me press S5 and get it running. You can see it's going, and it's a little tedious, and it will stop at periodic pieces of time and not respond. and come back. It usually comes back. So let's see if it comes back. And this is sort of waiting for the internet downloads. What I'll do after I'm done checking, come on now, there we go, 629. So I think there's a little bit of a screen freeze. Usually this pops around all night. Depends on how much memory. I might need to unload and reload my memory. It does consume a lot of memory. I know this is an older computer, but decent speed, and it goes by the internet, so you're downloading, several gigs here, or several, parts of a gig, right? It's got to come over your internet connection. So you just let this go for a while. You can see I'm up in July already. And I'll double check when I'm done with this. I'll double check the drive, and hopefully they didn't, some point in time, the leap year didn't screw it up or something like that to get you off by 7 days and not release. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I think they usually released it on, but who knows what they did at any point in time. And so I'll check the file sizes and see if I'm getting some integrity out of them. So let's stop here and wait for that to finish, because it's not really fun to watch this go on. I'm in August of 1963. All right. Well, that wasn't too bad time-wise. It got me through 12/27/1969. Let's take a quick look at my directory. I've got 522 files. As I go through them, they look like they're pretty consistent. I expect if I came up with if they switch days on me or something, and I came up with a 0, I'd expect a pretty 404 not found. I'd expect a pretty small file, like 42 kilobytes or something. So that, and also because they're pretty consistent in size, it kind of tells me hopefully they've used the same format doing the data. So let's go back to the next step. So I've got my decade I'm going to put this on the 196 tab. I'll create tabs for every decade. So now I got to import the decade. So I'll use this routine over and over, but this is 196 stands for, just short for 1960. 1960 to 1969. So it's going to, let me step into this. Before I do that, the data is not a lot of data on this site, but I'll put the start week, the end week, top position, weeks at the top, weeks on the chart, song title, and artist name. So I know that's not like all your ID3 tags or whatever, MP3 tags and stuff like that. I'm not going to download most of these songs anyways. Just too many songs, but I didn't want to go through hopefully this won't be, maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 songs a decade or something like that, that I can sift through and see if there's something that was sort of I missed, popular songs. So this is going to pull out, I'm going to go through each one of those 522 files and pull out data for every single position. But I've done a little bit of this before, a little error checking, and I noticed that sometimes they skip a number and they don't include it, so I just have to adjust for that type of stuff. So I had a lot of error checking in this routine, but then all of a sudden they weren't consistently putting out 100 a week. They would skip one and it would get all haywire. But let's see how this does, and if they change formats later on, then I'll get some crashing here and I'll have to redo it. But basically I'm going to start with row 1 here because it's blank. I'm going to pull my Billboard and I'm going to do a split. So here's the first file. It happens to be, I guess hopefully they'll go in order, because I've got them numbered, lettered in order or whatever. So it's 1960, January 2nd. Hopefully it'll do that throughout. Otherwise I've accommodated for that in my algorithm. So I'm going to do a split. Now I normally do a split on the line feeds, but that didn't work. So I put it on the greater than sign, which you get a lot of in HTML because it's pulling down the HTML. So now that's loaded that into memory. I'm not opening it. I'm just loading it into memory. That'll be a lot quicker to get through all the lines. There's probably, where's my upper bound? 8,000 something rows when I split it by greater than sign. So I'm going to just pull my week out of the file name. So when I put that into a cell, it'll be a legitimate date. My N, I'm going to start on 0 because dimensional arrays start on a 0. And my U is going to be my position count, right? And I'll adjust this count as we go along because, like I said, they skip some. Originally, I just wanted to be 1 to 100 for every week, and while you're less than 101, but I had to get out of bounds here. So, it's going to have a bunch of crap for a while here. And I'm looking for current week, and it's probably going to be a bit down there, so let me just skip forward. So, yeah, out on 465th row, or 465th data file on that one. I'll go to the next one, and I'm just going to, here I did a little error checking, but it didn't always work, so I'm just going to pull it from that, and it's going to tell me that I'm now on number 1. And this is just, if you look at the web page, it'll, it's going to, that's the ranking number. I'm going to go ahead and put the week, and these will be the same. I'll reconcile those later because right now I'm doing every week. I'm going to do the U. So this was the number 1 song. I'm going to count the weeks at the top just by aggregating them later. I know there might be a small error there, but so what? This is just for my pleasure, not official count. So I'm going to go ahead 9 rows in that CSV file, split by the way I talked. This will be the name of the song. I did error check there. Hopefully I won't get any more errors, but who knows. So I'm going to strip out that HTML that was left over there, and the name of the song is going to be Y. This replaces this is what HTML looks like for an asterisk, or not an asterisk, apostrophe. And then songs have a lot of apostrophes, believe it or not. And I replaced the ampersand with an and. Maybe I should have used the word and. I'll have to see. I might go back and redo that. I don't know if this is legit. Either one of these is legit for a file name when I eventually get down to that. If I wanted to copy this, but probably all right. So that didn't have any one of those. So I'm going to put the song title as Y. I'm going to go a couple more, and I got to do all kinds of stuff. It's Frankie Avalon, but it's got all this crap before and after. Like I said, they don't come in nicely, so I replace some double spaces with a blank and then replace the blanks with nothings. And hopefully that'll leave my regular spaces intended, and then I got to trim. And there's been a couple different things I got to trim, and it had a line feed in it, and I got to get rid of that. And then if you have any apostrophes or and symbols. And so Frankie Avalon goes up there. His song Y was the number 1 on my first January 2nd list. And so what I learned when I did this, the weeks on chart kind of didn't do it, like you expected this to be the 5th week on the chart. Instead, it just will say, hey, this was on the chart for 16 weeks, and it's sort of it's an aggregate number. So I thought I was going to have to aggregate those up. Instead, let's see, I got to go forward a little bit. Again, I had to put that in there just because it wasn't consistent. So they ended up being total of 16 weeks. So every week this is going to come up, because they don't drop off the chart right away. So I get a lot of duplicates in here. In other words, I don't think he's going to be on 16 times, but as I get further down the list, he would be on like 16 times if I had started earlier or later. So I get a couple years out, and it'll be like, so I'll strip those out later. But for right now, so we're just going to go on this routine here, and we'll just see what happens, and it's going to pop up. Every week it's dropping 100 in there roughly, and it's got these are all zeros, and it's got the number of weeks, it's got the song name, and it's got the artist. So let's let that go for a while and see what happens. Okay, well that didn't take too long. A little over 52,000 entries for the decade. That's about what I expected, give or take. I should probably save this off just so I don't have to repeat that. Not that it took too long. So let me create a copy here. And what did I do there? I didn't want to do that. Oh, I have other file. I'll have to rearrange that. No problem. So the last thing I want to do is I want to go through this, and because like I said, these songs will show up multiple weeks, and I don't necessarily need it repeated like 20 times or 27 times or 26 times or whatever number of weeks you normally spend on the chart. So I'll go through and find the end row, start at row 2. It's going to give me the song title and the name, and I'm going to go forward and find out when one of these match. So I'll find, usually it's the next week, But in case it's not, I got some error checking, and all I'm going to do is I'll leave, if the starting week is lower, I'll get the lowest starting week and the highest ending week. And then if the position drops some, I can't drop from a 1, but some of these others can drop. Then as I get new top positions, I'll put that new top in this tallest, the highest row, the closest row to number 1. And then I'll increment this counter, and if it drops again. So sometimes I'll get people that were number 1 for several weeks, but other times some people never made it higher than 53, and they spent 1 week at 53, or spent a couple weeks at 53, or 2 weeks at number 2. And then it will put Z's in where the song titles are, so that when I can sort them back out and erase them. So hopefully that'll get that 52,000 down. So let me go forward till it finds one, which is the next, it's going to be row 203. So it probably wasn't the number 1 next week. But, okay. So let's just run that. Of course, when I still got 1 breakpoint in there. You can see it's adjusting some of these top positions and the weeks at the top. And it's adjusting the end weeks as it goes along. So this will give me a nice piece of data that tells me when it started, when it ended. As you get beyond this 1960, it was be a little more useful, or this first week of 1960. And I got a lot of Z's, so that's going to skip forward pretty quickly. So let me just keep running that. And as new people come in the top 100, you get a handful every week of people that are new to the thing. Sometimes you debut high, and sometimes you don't debut high. But let's let that go on its way. Okay, so that took a little while. Probably a quicker way to do that without kind of doing brute force and not arrays. But anyways, we've come out unscathed for the decade here. Seems like it kind of worked. You can see that there's certainly songs that you'd recognize. So let's just do a quick data sort. And do artist name. Send it. And then, I don't know, starting week has ended. So you'll always have sort of some of these people I never heard of before, but I don't know all the 60s people, but certainly some you can. So let's see how many unique songs, should be unique, I got. So I'm in share, Gladys Knight, Kingsmen's Temptations. Whoop, there we go. So for the decade, and hopefully the other decades will be sort of like that. Let's see, 60. I'll go ahead and delete those rows. 69, 62 songs. So yeah, some of them, probably a lot of these I haven't heard of, but depending on the year and where you're at. So I have to do this for the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. So I got about 5-6 more decades to pull up. But yeah, it seems like it's working. And again, this is for just for kind of pleasure to look through. It's not like you can't go by artist, but some of these artists, you may never know those songs or realize that they had that many top. The 1910 Fruit Gum Company had that many top songs. Or release songs. I guess in theory you could, there's songs that are not released that are on an album that may be your favorites, but again, this is popular stuff that was released. So let me go ahead and do that. Maybe I'll wrap this up. All right, I'm back with that exercise, and I've got all the decades out there, and comes out to a little over 26,000 songs per se. But like I suspected, there's some errors in the data itself. You can see this NSYNC. I think it has a space in front of it till Tuesday. I noticed I didn't eliminate quotes, so I might have to go back and do that type of stuff. So this should be quote Weird Al, and you'll see that in the songs also, I think, as you come down here. So just random stuff that doesn't make it exact. Trying to find another example where they've had the same song. Sometimes they're adjacent to each other with just a slight difference. So it's a slightly smaller number than the 26,000 for the purpose that I was looking for. It's a really good listing. You know, I don't want to go through and correct 26,000 entries based upon what's come out before. But it was kind of interesting to see that, you know, what bands did hit number one, and what bands, or, you know, like U2 versus some other people. Like U2 only had two number ones, which is a little surprising. But overall, you can take a look through here and find songs or albums or artists, not albums, songs or artists that either had top hits that you had either forgot about or weren't on your list. Of course, the Billboard Hot 100 is not perfect because although you have like some AC/DC here, for a lot of times they were a rock band, and rap and country doesn't rank necessarily high, especially in earlier years. So that's why you might be surprised with some of the results as far as people. But you can also, for the ones that are popular bands, you might figure out they weren't quite as popular at the time. Something like Nirvana, I think that you know, that Teen Spirit song, which is such impactful, and we think about that now as really a top song, but I don't think it broke like the top 10 even in the time and the day. So it just wasn't gaining popularity quite as quickly, and it takes bands a little time to gain some popularity. But other people come right out of the gate and had a lot of hits. So it's just interesting. You know, Aerosmith here looking out, and you know, Aerosmith. Well, not until. And here's an example. I mean, here's a number one song, but you can see it was listed once with an apostrophe and once without the apostrophe. So as you broke down here, you know, right for actually quite a few weeks here, from there to there, it had the apostrophe, and from here to here, it didn't. So I don't know, just weird the way that Billboard's listed some of that stuff, and you see "Crying" got listed twice, so you'd have to figure that out, right? I mean, you can figure it out easy when you sort by songs and stuff like that, and you can see that, okay, what the real story was, and that, you know, they actually got the 23rd as opposed to 24th. Whoops, screwed that up. What did you do there? But anyways, so yeah, I'll put this data out on a website where you can download this file and play around with it, clean it up if you want. But other than that, like I said, it's an interesting walk through time, and to see if people were popular at the time, how high they got on the Billboard Hot 100. That's about it. All right, enjoyed it, and so I'll be off going and getting some music. See ya.